Well, it's exactly 2 minutes past the top of the hour. Our discussion tonight begins in a moment. Willie Sotieno, Eric Theuri, Arnold Maliba, and Alutalala Mvurya, right? 3 advocates and 1 political strategist. UDA communications advisor is here. I'm speaking to the gentleman in a bit. But first, let's take a look at today's news tomorrow, the bold newspaper. Read boldly. The Standard, Ruto hangs on Raila for survival. I said this during our podcast today. By the way, you need to find that podcast online. That Raila Odinga seems to be the band-aid for every government. Comes in with a solution each time there is a problem. 4 nominees from ODM party. I should say the split ODM party. That is the top leadership of the party. Ali Hassan Ali Joho, who is the deputy party leader, and Wycliffe Oparanya, who is also the deputy party leader. Then we have ODM chairman John Mbadi and the minority leader in the National Assembly, Opiyo Wandayi, joining the Kenya Kwanza government. The list is out, all of them, 20, if I'm not wrong, or 21. The 20 total number of nominees so far headed to Parliament for vetting. We'll see what happens. That's our splash tonight, the bold newspaper. In about 2 hours, you will definitely be having it in all the outlets. So grab a copy. Let's now go to a little bit of history. The date today. This is 8 years ago. And take a look at the headline then, and you can bet it was all about Raila Odinga. This is the 24th of July, the year is 2016. This was the bold newspaper yet again. Western Tour brings out Raila Odinga's dilemma. Opposition leader strives to put out fires in ODM as co-principals raise storm over State House race. 2016, Raila was making headlines. 2024, he's still making headlines. And even this, at that time, was about a split in ODM. The co-principals were raising alarm over State House race, and Raila Odinga went ahead to represent court then and ran for president. That was the election that Willis was Raila Odinga's campaign chief.
Yes.
Strategist, Amani campaign.
Chief campaign manager, head of the secretariat.
Head of the secretariat. And they bungled that election.
No, we won, and the Supreme Court confirmed it. We went to court and we caught Uhuru Kenyatta stealing our votes, and his election was nullified.
Away from that,
you don't steal from Willis Otieno.
Terror suspect keen seek justice was also a top story then, 2016. Now, this was the bold newspaper. Make sure you read boldly and pick the Standard. And away from that, let's take a look at President William Ruto just a few months ago, less than 2 years ago.
Tisho walikuwa naye ati ndio wapate serikali nusu mkate, haitafanyika tena. Haiwezekani. Sijui kama tunaelewana. Na hawa watu nitawakalia ngumu. Bana. Bana. Ama namna gani? Si ndio? Kwani mtu ambaye anataka kuharibu biashara ya mwingine anabembelezwa? Bana. Nitawakalia ngumu sana hiyo watu wakwendi. Sijui kama tumeelewana jameni. Negwo. Neduraiguidhania. Tunakubaliana. Hiyo ndio barabara. Si kila mtu afanye biashara jameni. Sisi tungangane, tutafutie hawa vijana ajira, tupange biashara.
Have the best brains on television tonight. Willie Sotieno, Eric Theuri, Arnold Maliba, and of course, Alutalala. I gave everyone an opportunity to reflect on the day that has been. Maliba, in 1 minute, your reflection on the day that has been.
Well, I was seated there listening to the lawyerly arguments and, of course, looking at it. So I'll choose to walk away from that, even though I'm a student of law. Deliberately, let me begin from a softer side, because the human side always trumps everything. You know, I think it's somewhere in Psalms, the psalmist talks about when the foundations are shaken, what will the righteous do? Kenya, over the years, of course, has been going through so many things. So from where we have been, of course, the foundations of the nation have been shaken. How then do you handle it? A lot of what we're going to hear tonight, and I've already had a little bit of that, my senior in high school, Eric Theory here, talking about if what we are trying to come up with is compatible with the law or not. We are going to hear a lot of constitutional terms, and even the host yourself is actually a lawyer, and that makes this show quite heavy, legal heavy. I'll be the only person who will be trying to dilute it and actually ensure that the local Mwananchi side actually gets a bit of it. So this is it. That the Constitution actually, if we were to make it very basic, is simply aims and rules for which a society wishes to use. A lot of times we want to make it look like it's rocket science. It's basic. It simply aims. Our objectives, what do we want, and then the rules for which we actually hope to achieve that. So it's never something that is actually quite difficult out there. I'm bringing it down completely to ensure that any other person whose left brain might not be as loyally as the panel tonight. So having said that, it's important to say this, that we could argue that, Ken, you are not a Gen Z, that Willis here is a proper millennial, that Wakili here is also a millennial. I don't know whether he's a Generation X or a baby boomer, my elder from the village, but the one thing we can't argue about is that all of us are Kenyans. So there is neither ODM or UDA. At the end of the day, when the foundations of the nation are shaken, there's only one Kenya. And that is why, for the members of parliament who were in parliament on 25th June, they did not wait to actually tell people, okay, I am the one who voted no, so you guys, I'm actually easy with you. The protesters might not have understood that particular language. All of them had to flee. Okay. Because at the end of the day, we are all Kenyans. So what are we seeing today? We are seeing the congregation, the calling to parade, the sense that we are all Kenyans at the end of the day. And the constitution that we have at the end of the day is actually made for us. We as Kenyans are not made for this constitution. It's made for us. And when necessary, we actually can make it work for us.
Does that constitution that you talk about distinguish the levels of governance and government?
Of course it does.
But and then why can't we use the same constitution as a point of reference when we are making these decisions, like the president? Because there's already a threat from Busia Senator Okia Mtata that incorporating the opposition in government is unconstitutional based on the constitution that you talk about tonight, and he's going to go to court, Maliba.
Ken, from my understanding of the constitution, there's no such thing as opposition. There's just the majority and the minority. So if you choose to look at the minority side as oppositionist, any person can actually play oppositionist politics. For the simple reason that the young people who are actually in the streets are partyless. But what are they doing? They are doing politics. I heard Wakili Willis talk about traditional politicians. There is no modern politician. The greatest of all politicians who still trumps, or rather is up there, is Julius Caesar. So far, I look at him as the greatest man who ever lived. He is not any young, yet some of the things he's done, all of us, even those who are doing politics today, have to go back. Okay. For everything you see politicians do today, whether in the US, Kenya, or anywhere else, Julius Caesar did it first. So what am I saying?
There's nothing new.
So there's nothing traditional about it. So when you look at it from whatever way you are going to look at it, is that the tag opposition, I think we brought the aspect of oversight, and that largely is what, quote unquote, today we are having what I would call a people oversight. People out there, some of them not affiliated to parties, but doing this. But that is exactly what this constitution envisioned, that we gave ourselves a participatory governance framework, and that your role as a citizen does not end at the casting of the vote. This thing around public participation, you being part and parcel of the governance, you are a co-governor through and through, and that is why when the people go to the street and they say, we do not want or like this particular bill, the government of the day listens, because they are actually, I'm using the word co-governance deliberately, that you are part and parcel of the management of public affairs through and through.
Okay.
It doesn't really matter. The people who are in there, and Ken, I need to finish actually my first submission by saying this. There is no one with a monopoly of ideas when it comes to governance. That is why our constitution opened up the room. There are other people. So when Okia Mtata says that he's going to court, this constitution actually saw that and opens up that. That is how we are going to better this particular process. That is how we are testing the constitution. That is how we are anchoring it.
Okay. Yeah. Very interesting. You've gone to the issues, but I'd like to begin. That was your opening remark, because I needed to know your reflection of the day, and you swiftly ran away from it. But the day has been, and perhaps the first question that is in weighing heavily in everyone's mind and heart this evening, Alutalala, is the genesis of these protests and where we are right now. And the reason why ODM is a beneficiary of a process they didn't start is because the president has deliberately ignored the youthful population, the Gen Zs that began agitating for accountability and for good governance. Is that statement true?
In neuro-linguistic programming, we say, if you say it is wrong, you're right. And if you say it's right, you're wrong. Either way, it all depends on what perspective you want to approach it from. I'm not so sure the president has ignored the Gen Zs. Because if you look at what the president has done since the Gen Z phenomena began to unfold, he has clearly responded to it. He may not have responded 100% to what exactly Gen Z demand, but let's begin with the initial demand by the Gen Z, which was Mswada of Finance Bill Wende. That the president conceded. And indeed, the president considered that what the Gen Z was agitating for was valid. Thereafter, they demanded that the cabinet must go. It did go, never mind the reappointment. That's another debate. And therefore, it is not absolutely correct to say that the president has ignored the Gen Z. What that statement is attempting to bring to focus is how the president has gone about in reconstituting his cabinet and how the president has gone about, particularly the national security apparatus, in dealing with the Gen Z, which has been brutal and deaths have occurred. So if your question is the president has ignored the Gen Z movement completely, that is not accurate. But if your question is that the president could have done better, indeed he could have done better. And that is what he himself has confessed and said, there is a crisis. The Gen Z phenomena is unique, it's new, it is an uncharted terrain. And even the president himself is confronted with a situation that he has not had to learn from his predecessors. And therefore, in the process, mistakes are being made, and it is possible that the president is not getting it right 100%. Look at the issue of the cabinet. Of course, the Gen Zs wanted a clean sweep. They said, we want to drain the swamp. So when the president disbanded the cabinet, they celebrated. When he has reconstituted, including those callbacks, they're unhappy with it. When the president decides to bring back faces who, for some reason, appeared to be the face of the problem, and he brings them back without mentioning names, the Gen Z feel that the president is not listening to them. But in my view, the president has responded.
Okay.
What he has not done is to respond in the manner 100%.
Okay.
That, in my view, is the
I'm going to ask the same question to the gentleman, but I want to ask you, the cost of the concessions that the president made, is it important? Is it material in this discussion?
What do you mean by the cost?
The cost of concessions, what had to happen for the president to make these concessions? Is it important in this discussion? Because that's where they're proceeding from, the Gen Zs.
It is. The cost implication was huge. Come to think of it, you've just played a clip about what the president felt during his campaigns about the opposition, specifically the Honorable Raila Odinga's involvement in matters, politics of government with him. Now, the Gen Z have pushed the president to a corner where the president is forced to make decisions that hitherto today were very, very unpalatable. And I'm sure when those clips are played, his followers, his supporters flinch at it, because that is what he promised them.
Okay, okay. I will come back to you. I'll come back to you. Now that you've introduced the clip, and this is an express question to Theory, the president has been accused of not being entirely honest, not keeping his word. That was word that was given by the president then. He's walked away from it in daylight, broad daylight. And that's why we're playing the clip.
Well, I mean, to be fair, we just can't accuse the president alone from walking from his word. You will definitely find clips of those who have now been appointed or nominated to cabinet saying that they can never move to the side. And I think that whereas, you know, I get where Arnold is coming from, that eventually will form part of the conversation. That as political leaders, do we get to a point where we can actually say something and whatever we say means something? And it looks like a question of semantics. But if there are members of ODM who have said, you know what, we cannot work with this government is ABCD, 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 and then they join it.
They bear the greatest responsibility for this?
It actually brings into question whether there was really any question of principle. And I think that is the conversation that I was driving at in terms of the questions that arise. And you must, and I want to say this, that I appreciate the position that the President of Kenya, Honorable Ruto, finds himself in. You know, you have unrest in the country, and I think that sometimes, you know, extraordinary times calls for extraordinary measures. But ultimately, the question that is going to exercise on a lot of us in terms on our minds would be, does this in itself address the concerns that Kenyans had? That if, for example, you now bring in, let's say, the proposed cabinet nominee for Treasury, what exactly are you seeking to cure by bringing in this nominee? And I guess at a certain point you have to look at it and say that perhaps in terms of bringing in people who have wide political acceptance, that may calm the country. It is debatable. It is something that we'll have to wait and see. But the reality of it is that the president finds himself in extremely extraordinary times.
Who caused the extraordinary times that he finds him? This is a president that was elected by popular will. He was confirmed by the Supreme Court. He had a mandate to lead this country. Last year, Kenyans spoke about the finance bill and all the issues they had that president did not listen to. The same thing happened this year. Unfortunately, this time round, it was different because he was pushed to understand what they were talking about. Does the cause of this crisis matters when we are making such statements and saying it's an extraordinary time that called for extraordinary measures, and thus we find ourselves in this space?
You know the problem of trying to lay blame is that it then becomes, you sort of, what they say is that you might end up creating a blind world because everyone is trying to point a finger at someone else. I think the discussion should focus so much in terms of, we have certain challenges. We have our laws and we have the Constitution, and we have a government that is in place, and the government must respond to those issues, and we now need to look at the response that it has given and hope that that response begins a process of bringing together the country. Because ultimately, and this is one of the things that we've always argued, you know, as citizens, we have said we are exercising our sovereign power. If even as we exercise it and exercise it directly, it must also be done within the confines of the Constitution. And so all those then becomes, you know, someone has to look at what is the most viable option of bringing peace, prosperity into the country. But then again, there are still questions. And that's why I keep saying that even if you come, you know, it's so difficult to find that magic bullet. Because one item brings forth several questions.
All right. Willis, that is a question to you. I've seen you in protests in the last few weeks.
Yes.
Virtually all of them, and you take pictures and post on social media. You're being picky, ponky, the politician.
And every time there's a protest, I get to my house past midnight because I have to spend time in police stations.
You are arrested?
No, I'm not arrested.
Oh,
I'm an advocate.
So even advocates can get arrested.
Part of my duty is to follow up on the innocents who've been illegally arrested by the police. But let me say this.
Yes, the question, is the president ignoring?
You know, the first standing point is this. Eric here is the former chairman of Law Society, President of Law Society of Kenya. He's talking as if Chapter 6 of the Constitution means nothing. I mean, when somebody goes to a public platform and gives his word to you, then 2 days later for political expediency, he does the opposite. So when you say that a public officer should conduct himself in a manner that brings decorum, so you have a liar in a public office, and the facts of his lies are not even debated. He said this today, there's a clip, media were there, we all covered, we all watched. The next day he says the opposite. Media are there, we are all watching. And there are citizens participating. I mean, what the former president should be telling us of Law Society is that we have a Chapter 6. That kind of conduct is a conduct we don't need in this country. And the president, as a person who took the oath of office to uphold and defend and protect the Constitution, should not trash Chapter 6. I mean, when the people of Kenya came up with Chapter 6 in the first place, it was because of this political dirt. That was our politics. So we consciously decide that we are going to put Chapter 6 of the Constitution and call it the Leadership and Integrity Chapter. In fact, in terms of the order of chapters, Chapter 6 comes even before the setting up of the executive. For particular reason, to tell you how serious Chapter 6 should be. We should not say that, oh, because today it's politically convenient, I can eat my words and go back to what I'd said before.
It's extraordinary time.
There's nothing extraordinary. In fact, when you talk about for peace and prosperity, when I went to the streets, and every time I've gone to the streets, there has been peace from the people who are demonstrating. The only time when you've witnessed some sort of violence is when the police start throwing tear gas and firing live arrows. This other time is when you see armed militia. I don't even want to call them goons. I will not call them border borders because I know there are very many border riders who don't condone this kind of conduct, who have stood up and said, these are not our people. These are goons. These are militia that is trying to camouflage as border borders to give us a bad name. These are militia, and Kenyans should start defining them. These are political militias who are being deployed, riding on motorbikes to cause chaos.
What would you describe the hooded police officers?
Now, look even at that. That's part of now the armed militia. Because they're not police officers. A police officer, when he's in police duty, has to wear a uniform. He has to have an identity badge. There must be a way of identifying him. That is why even those who are going out on anti-riot duty, they must be in designated police uniform and regalia. But you have someone who is walking with a balaclava covering his head and an assault rifle and jeans and driving in an unmarked vehicle. I mean, that's not a policeman. You are giving our policemen a bad name. Because it can be anybody. It can even be me wearing those kind of things and carrying an open carry firearm.
And confidently
carrying it into town, and people will think I'm a They are not policemen. Our policemen are more disciplined when they come out. They only become indisciplined when their superiors decide to abuse them. But let me say this also. You know, I urge Kenyans not to spend too much time on discussing the ODM move to join Ruto. We are spending too much time when the politicians, I call them traditional politicians, have shown us who they are. To them, it means nothing. You can say this today.
What means nothing?
To them, I mean, this thing is a game to them.
Okay.
But this which they,
regular
think is,
politics.
which they think is a game is actually a matter of life and death because of the decisions that they make. The decisions they make, the policy they implement, actually ends up defining whether someone is going to live or die. It ends up defining whether someone will go to school or not. Ends up defining whether someone will get quality health care or not. So, if they've decided to gang up as one group, that's okay. And by the way, they are also Kenyans. It's their right to be in one political outfit.
And they'll quote Article 38.
And yes, it's their political rights to gang up and work as a team. What Kenyans should be focusing on, to whose interest are they ganging up? Is it in the public interest or their own selfish interest? And the public now must start a conversation on how do we have a response? And our response should be, we continue with a national conversation on the public interest. Ask yourself, when William Ruto goes to look for ODM to save his regime, people are not on the streets to say that we feel that ODM members are not in government, we want an all-inclusive ODM government. No. They came up with the issues they wanted to be addressed. And they reclaimed their sovereignty. So going to look for ODM members to show up his support, at this point I'll even assume that Raila is not part of this, despite his top leadership being part of it. Because I'm waiting for his statement to respond to it. But to the extent that he has gone to ODM to show up his support, these politicians are feeling threatened. Even ODM as a political party is feeling threatened by what is going right now in Kenya.
Okay.
Because you are seeing a political movement that does not play to the usual political mantra. Because politicians are used to dividing us based on tribe. That, oh, I'm a Kikuyu, watu wa Murema, I am a Jaluo, I am a Taita, I am a Costerian, I'm a Muslim. No. This time it is purely about ideology, policy. And Kenyans are saying, it is the economy, stupid. Fix this economy, this pain that you're causing us. We don't care about our tribes, we don't care about our religion, we don't care about our ages. You're messing up our economy, your policies are causing us pain.
Okay.
And we reject it. So the politicians in response have ganged up. What are they ganging up against?
What
the
the people
ganging
are
up is to gang up against what the people are saying.
Okay.
So the onus is on us as the people to say we will also have an adequate response to that ganging up by the politicians. And we must continue deplatforming them. We must deny them audience. You'll see them like I saw some people, border borders, some groups being paid money to go to streets in certain parts of the country to celebrate a cabinet secretary somebody being nominated as a cabinet. Of course, they're trying to whip up emotions to try to tell you, now our people are in government. How many Jaluos tonight are sleeping hungry while Mbadi has been nominated as a CS for treasury?
Maliba, this conversation is open, gentlemen, but I want to ask you, Maliba, I know your response to my question if Ruto, the president, is ignoring the Gen Z. So I'll go ahead and ask you an alternative question. The president has attempted to use this crisis occasioned by the younger generation to answer his political problem. Is it going to work for him, Maliba? What is the strategy?
I'll answer your
Don't
question.
run away from that too.
I will definitely answer. But I want to begin from where everybody else was so that there's fairness.
Okay.
Number one, I work for UDA, the United Democratic Alliance party, as the strategic communication advisor. And one of those things we've actually spoken, and this can take it as a fair comment, is that sometimes the media is biased. The clip you played here shows the president speaking about how he will not allow Nusumukate. Fair enough. It's out there. It's not. But then let me just remind you that on 17th of October 2017, the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga said he doesn't want Nusumukate. We will see that in March of 2018. Just a moment. He is a Kenyan. He's a Kenyan. We are talking about, it's a political players here. So when we discuss, it's all round. So we are just saying, this characterization that looks like it's pushing in a certain way, that's why I actually was telling you that there's a reason. Willis, just wait. I'm actually addressing Ken. Wait. The problem is that you don't want to let me prosecute my point, and I'm not going actually to allow him. Why? You have discussed William, you have discussed Raila Odinga, but you do not want. I have not even spoken, and you can't allow me to speak.
At this point,
Ken,
is a civilian.
Tell Willis to wait. Tell Willis to wait. Tell Willis to to wait.
civilian, William Ruto is holding a public office. So when I say that we are discussing William Ruto, we are discussing him because chapter 6,
and I allowed him to speak,
chapter 6 of the Constitution applies to William Ruto.
Because this is bullying, and it cannot be allowed because when I was speaking, I kept quiet. So Willis cannot do that drama.
These two gentlemen.
Can I be allowed to just prosecute my point?
Please do.
Because he spoke about everybody.
He
spoke about everybody.
We are not discussing
right
now. Let's discuss.
So I have to proceed, Ken. I have to proceed.
Hold, Arnold.
Yes.
Yes, Ken.
Can you wait for Maliba to?
I will wait, but
point and then respond to
I will wait, Ken. But I'm simply saying, Raila Odinga is a civilian. William Ruto is a president, a public officer. Okay.
So, Ken, I was saying this, that from where I come from as a communication person for the party, one of the complaints we've been making is that there is the mischaracterization that looks like it's a little bit biased. And I was just reminding you that on 17th of October, 2017, Raila said he didn't want Nusu Mkate. In 2018 of March, we saw what happened. And
2018 of March, you've gone back to...
yeah, I'm actually sending you to another date.
Okay.
On 25th of August, 2023, responding to the Deputy President, the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga spoke of that. I don't want to go to what Joho said. I don't want to go to what Oparanya said. And I'm alluding to the things Willis has said. Funny that he actually can speak about that, but then I'm not allowed to speak about it.
No.
So, now...
But do you agree?
Yes, now, I wanted to start.
I
said it's a fair comment.
For me, I can interject. But do you agree, for the sake of our viewer, that you cannot discuss or put on the same plane? We are talking about a president and someone who doesn't hold the same office or a public office. Do you agree that you are trying to put them on the same plane?
I don't agree. We are having a Kenyan conversation about Kenyan governance.
Okay, you are entitled to your
yes. So, anyway, quickly, moving forward, I need to say this. In conflict theory, there's this thing called consensus. And consensus is normally when we agree for two purposes. Number one, to move forward, and number two, to craft a common future. That happens a lot when there is normally a challenge. That is where we are as a country. That we are moving at a place. Number one, the president and the government generally has responded to literally every one of the demands. And I'm talking about responding does not mean that then the government and the president do not have an opinion of their own, do not have a thinking around the issues as raised. So literally every one of those demands, the president has responded to it, except one thing that actually is out there and we're not talking about it, the expanding nature of the demands and the objectives. That there's what I would call an agenda sprawl. So there was quite a good agenda setting at the beginning. But then as they got gains, they kept on pushing. So we've kept on going. So number one, the president has responded to Gen Zs. So it's not true that he's ignored Gen Zs.
Okay.
Number two, that in dealing with the midterm, the short term was a quick response to a lot of them, dropping the finance bill, sending the cabinet home, changing a number of priorities, even in the bottom-up economic, the transformation plan. But then in the medium term, the president has decided to cobble up a team that will help him achieve the demands as now asked by this particular group and most of Kenyans. He looks at it and realizes that it has changed, and therefore he cannot proceed the way he actually had planned. Okay. And therefore, he has to come up with a different set of team.
Why
you
must
cannot
look
rubbish.
At the opposition?
I'm saying, number one, you use a pool that already exists. You look into that pool and see if it works. A lot of the people who are rubbishing this, Ken, are people who will have an argument about ideology versus policy. You know, in today's governance, the idea of ideology and policy is a little bit fluid. Because when we speak about policy, we speak about evidence-based.
I think the line is so clear, Willis.
I'm saying, for purposes of actually furthering this conversation, today in governance, we are having an argument that do we go by ideology or do we run by policy? And we're not talking about policy, we're talking about evidence-based policy. You know, Ken, I believe is stronger than I know. That is why if people believe something, they will actually die with it, even though sometimes evidence provides to the contrary. So, and that is why we still have got a fluid balance between ideology versus policy. So here, from where the president sits, he knows and he feels that at this particular point, for me to go forward in the midterm, I will actually need a different set of approach.
And does he know, or he was forced to realize it? Because we are mixing issues. The president picked what he knew was the best, Maliba.
Ken, when you say that, does he know, or that, you know, we've said this, and I know whether that is philosophy or whatever way you want to look at it, that it's only a fool who doesn't change his mind.
That's how we want to simplify.
Yes, so when
what
people,
he has done.
when people, we can't simplify. I'm just saying that from wherever way you look at it,
Okay.
there's a way the president had planned. He listened to Willis and myself. And by the way, I work for government, and I have gone to all those demonstrations. I'm a child of the street, and one of those things I do, so long as there's a governance demonstration, I must be in the street to actually have a feel of it. And I'll tell you one thing.
I think we need to give other people time also, Maliba.
You promised me to respond.
Yeah, you will respond.
Just that we don't lose the track, because Eric, I know, and Lutala will come. Let me say this. You know, when I talk about people who, the country throwing Chapter 6, first we must agree that Raila Odinga is a civilian. William Ruto is a public officer. So Chapter 6 applies squarely to him. That's what I was talking about. So it's important that Maliba understands that. But the problem why he's having it difficult to understand, this gentleman campaigned for Raila Odinga in 2022. He was very actively involved in the Azimio campaigns. But today, he's spewing the UDA rhetoric. You know, this is the kind of thing that people misconduct, that people take into government, where somebody takes a position when he's selling his policy to the people. Then once a government is formed, he throws out everything and goes to look for his own stomach. We must be able to say, we must clean this country. If I say, like, for example, I'm in Safina, you'll never see me anywhere near William Ruto's government, because our policies are totally different. Because of lack of opportunity. No. Even they have tried reaching out to us when we refused. We are very clear. Our policies are different. What they believe in, what we promised, what they promised are different. So he's in office. Let him perform his functions as per his promise to the people. But this thing of today, I'm saying this, tomorrow I'm saying this is the dirt in our politics that we have to get rid of. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay. I'll actually respond to that, because there's a strong statement made, and that you can allow me to actually...
Briefly, because I need to go to the other gentleman, yes. Very briefly, yes.
A thief without an opportunity to steal thinks he's an honest man.
Until he finds opportunity.
My point is this, that for those of us, myself, Jalango, and the others, who were initially in Azimio and went to Kenya Kwanza, first of all, I just need to tell Willis, he probably didn't know this, I'm a founder member of UDA. I actually just changed midway. I am actually member number 7. That you can actually ask those who know. But this is the point. So, I just needed to say this.
What were you doing in
that for those of us,
Willis.
those of us who went ahead of time.
Willis, I need to go
Ken,
to Kalala.
I just want to finish this. That Ken, those of us who went ahead of the bigger team that has arrived today, played a role in kinetics, which probably the SOG at AP or in the army, there is a unit called LRS. We are the pathfinders, and the mission has been achieved.
Okay.
What was he doing in Azimio?
And by the way, no one asked Safina to join.
What was he doing in Azimio?
No one asked Safina to join them.
What was he doing in Azimio? What was he doing in Azimio? Then now he's standing at UDA. These are the people
he has not been appointed.
I don't even want to be approached. No, I don't.
He feels angry.
I will throw you out. I will honestly throw you out.
Ken, I'm your classmate. I'll stop.
Honestly throw you out.
Ken, I'll stop. I'm not going to talk.
Alutalala,
yes.
Has the president used this crisis to sort out his political challenges? And how will it end, in your opinion?
Yes and no, and rightfully so, if he has used this opportunity. Because sometimes, wajua husema, mgeni njoo mwenyeji apone. When a crisis emerges, there is an opportunity. The president himself has actually said this in one of his many speeches and said, yes, we are in a crisis. So he admits there is a crisis. But he says that the opportunity in this crisis is greater than the crisis in
What is that opportunity?
Thank you.
What is that opportunity?
The opportunity that the president has is the opportunity to address issues he would never have had the courage to address, he would never have had the real platform to address. And the first one was actually the disbandment of the cabinet. He would never have thought of disbanding the cabinet, why not because of this problem. But allow me, Ken, just to go a little bit and explain something from the two arguments by the two gentlemen. Allow me to explain something.
Go ahead.
When the Honorable Duale was reappointed to cabinet, I saw on social media there was a huge celebration, a huge screen like this one behind Simba Merudi. And I asked myself, maana ya Simba ni nini? Simba huenda mawindoni, Akienda mawindoni hurudi na alichowinda kuletea watoto wake. I want you to understand who we are as a people. The people who gave birth to Aden Duale see and continue to see in Aden Duale's fortunes as being fortunes that he will bring home. Aden Duale is not Luya. Aden Duale is Somali. Fast forward to Luo Nyanza. Recently, when the Honorable Mbadi was trying to explain why they had decided to accept to come and help the president stabilize the boat, he said, and I think Honorable Kaluma as well, serikali, hakuna mjaluo kwa serikali. Lazima tuwe katika serikali pia. What was the message?
There were so many laws in the previous government.
Well, I'm paraphrasing him.
Yes.
What was the message? That whereas there is government, that government must also have laws. Can we miss the point when we try to go into too many ideologies about what is happening in this country? Our foundations are, as a people, were laid in 1963 when we got independence. If you look at the initial cabinet of Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, there was a clear leaning towards people who were of his ethnic mix in terms of the prime positions. The issue of why the president should bring in Raila should be seen in that context. That our configuration as a political nation is configured on the tribe. So much so that the framers of the 2010 Constitution have provided expressions that in the distribution of resources in this country, they must give preference and consideration to regional balance. Mzee Kenyatta laid the foundation. Mzee Moi buttressed it by his Nyayo philosophy. Kibaki did better. Uhuru Kenyatta marinated it. We must accept that when you are talking about politics in this country, you only stabilize your boat if you're going to take care of the regional balance. That is why in this crisis which is going on, the president has reached out to Honorable Raila Odinga. And if you look at the Honorable Raila Odinga's appointments, they are pointed towards regional balance. Why is the Honorable Paranya in there? Because political power is obtained through the ballot. And the ballot, you get the ballot through universal suffrage. In other words, you cannot form government and only talk about meritocracy. When you form government, the first thing that you must excel in is how to craft political power that puts into government. So once you're in government, then you have to abide by the Constitution. That's why meritocracy comes in, and that's what Willis is talking about, Chapter 6 and all that. But now you are in government. The Gen Z revolution has come. Are you going to take a political dagger and thrust it into your own chest by merely saying, now I'm taking this government home, I'm going to bring Ken Mijungu, Willis Otieno, Eric Theuri, Maliba to run the government? The president has done a mix of political survival that is requisite in retaining political power. That is why the Honorable Paranya must be there, because he's useful in 2027 and beyond.
Okay.
That is why Honorable Joe is there, because he's useful in going forward. That is why the people from the Luo community have been brought to government.
Okay.
If you ask me, the president has pulled a master stroke, and that is what a politician will do.
That master stroke theory, Eric, I saw the other day, there was a commentary after the unfortunate event that happened in the US. The bullet was meant for Trump, but it killed, in quote, Biden. That master stroke. The fall of the Jubilee Party, for example. During the campaign, it was said, this is a person responsible for us not achieving what we set out for Agenda 4, for the fall of Agenda 4 and the rest. Is this part of William Ruto's strategy that in 2027, the formidable opposition will be so weak that it will be, if he survives, because this is still going on, right? If he survives this onslaught against him, with all these stopgap measures he's putting in place to ensure that the country comes down to a place that now he can govern. I mean, he has been tethered in the country for the last 4 weeks. Is that masterstroke going to work for him and fall on another person?
You know, Ken, we live in very interesting times. I was just musing in my head about the significance of the proposed CS nominee for Treasury, the Honorable Mbadi. And considering that we are here as a result of the complaints that people had over the finance bill. And if you remember, we had maandamano prior to that. And during the talks, the NADCO talks, the opposition then was primarily focusing on the question of the cost of living. And so it is primarily now in the docket of ODM to address the question of cost of living, of course, together with the rest of the infrastructure of government. And so I look at the move that the president has done, and I want to agree that this is not only just an act of political survival, but it is also an act of appreciating the nature of the country that we live in. When you listen to a lot of legal commentators, we seem as a country to have a problem with the manner in which we have adopted our constitution to proceed with the presidential system. Because what it basically means is that whoever loses, even though they perhaps lose, and you've seen our election, that somebody loses by 48 to 49 or 48 to 51, yeah. So that you have a lot of legitimacy, but you're out of government. And so the moment you are brought into government, in whatever formation that you're brought in, you bring in some element of stability, because now it is reflective of the entire country. And for me, I look at it and I say that even though there'll be questions, and I'm not saying that whenever any action is taken, there will not be questions. There will be questions. For example, there is a petition in the High Court, and ODM was part of that petition, that was challenging the Speaker's ruling with regards to the question of majority.
I'm in it, actually.
Yeah?
I'm on record.
You're in it?
Yes.
What then do you think, and it is almost at the stage of, I think, a hearing or a determination?
Final submission.
Yes. So what then do you make of that? That, you know, and I think ultimately that was what I was trying to drive to, that sometimes we find ourselves in these interesting scenarios that one political party says this, and then in the middle of it, it changes completely, because the position that the ODM party has in court in that petition then goes against what exactly they have done today. And of course, we know when you go and you become a little bit theoretical, you start questioning about, you know, what the Constitution says and whatever. And of course, Arnold here will say, you know, all that is theory. But there's the theory, there's the good manners, and then there's the act of political survival. And somewhere in the agitation of the Kenyan, and I've always looked at it not so much as the Gen Z revolution, but the Gen Z are also speaking something that all of us are speaking about. Mm-hmm. It is only that, you know, they have been the outward expression of what we are speaking in our closed and private spaces. Okay. So I guess, and for me, that is what I want to look at going into the future. What will it translate to? Will it be business as usual, or it will be business unusual, arising from the level of scrutiny and public focus and public participation that we are experiencing as a country. And that perhaps may begin to answer certain questions, and we will be able to, make a lot more in terms of what the president has actually done. But I think that it is something that is good for the country. It is something that brings stability into the country. But what we should not lose sight of is the question of accountability, is the question of how true will we be in implementing our constitution and the promise that the Constitution of Kenya holds for the Kenyan people.
I want to play 2 sound bites back to back because Maliba talked about them. I want us to listen to what Hassan Ali Joho said and what John Mbadi said. Then we come back.
We have a choice to make either decision to reject over 60% of these names or give President Ruto his skunk. Let us not interfere with it. We give it to him. He has asked for it. Let us give him his cabinet. We know he's going to run the government from State House. These are not people who can run a government. Apart from a few individuals who are not even more than 8, the rest are incompetent, unqualified, have integrity issues, are people who cannot deliver this country from where it is to the next level that we want the country to move in.
All right. That's John Mbadi, now the CS nominee for Treasury. I'm just wondering, gentlemen, and you'll respond in whole, if now he has a different view of the current nominees. And remember, there are people there who are in cabinet, about 10 of them. Away from that, let's also now go to Hassan Ali Joho, the nominee for mining.
Wasema mimi Hassan Joho nikitaka kuongea, mimi I don't even dream of engaging with them. Ati huyu akitaka aje aongee sio na mimi niongee na Ruto nini? Yani at this time 2021 you are telling me my solution is a wheelbarrow.
And I saw a meme, they're part of life now, of a wheelbarrow carrying oranges. But let's put all these things that have happened in the last few years into context by listening to one embattled senator, Mandago. Here is it.
Siasa ni kama upepo. Inaweza panda, inaweza shuka, inaweza simama. Na mmeona tayari vile hiyo maneno imeanza kuzunguka. Ama mjaona? Simuona? Ilianza 2014 ama ilikuwa sijui wapi, handshake hakuja. Watu wengine karibu wapandishe pressure. Sasa tumeenda kwa hii siasa, tumeenda. Unaona sasa Mudavadi, Wetangula wako kwa bottom up wanatangatanga. Lakini hapo nyuma Musalia na Mudavadi, Wetangula walikuwa kwa gani? Wewe endelea kuhangaika hapa Eldoret. Watu watakutana nani waje hapo kwa roundabout. Ukipiga kelele. I'm telling you, I'm not the most experienced politician. Lakini kwa hii muda kidogo mmenipatia nafasi, nimeona mambo mengi sana kwa siasa.
Siasa weka kwa mapafu, you puff it off when we're at the 11th hour. And that is essentially what has happened. But I want to ask you, gentlemen, the name that has not featured on this table tonight is Rigathi Gachagua, the chief shareholder of William Ruto's government. He claimed it. I'm just giving him his flowers back as the chief shareholder. Willis, where is Rigathi Gachagua in the whole of this equation tonight?
You know, isn't it? He's part of this. Kenya Kwanza is facing pressure from the people of Kenya. They reach out to ODM to salvage them. Rigathi Gachagua is the happier because now their sinking ship maybe has bought another 2 hours before it completely sinks. Because one thing we must all accept, this government has been rejected by the people. Whether you bring in Raila, you bring in ODM, you bring in who, the people have reclaimed their sovereignty and they're working with it in their pockets until you call an election. So Rigathi Gachagua cannot pretend that, or even don't even try to analyze him, that maybe he has lost or he has gained. There's no loss or gain to anybody in Kenya Kwanza. Even Alon here has gained because they have gotten 2 hours more than what they had before. But the crunch time will still come. it is their destiny. I mean, if it is your destiny to be finished, it is their destiny to be finished.
I know, I'm looking at my watch.
It is their destiny to be finished as Kenya Kwanza. So
regardless
of who comes in. So they thought that by going to grab ODM, that they'll get some new life. Of course, they may. Even if they could get that life, they will have gotten what you call a post-cabinet boom. A fresh burst of energy. But all that I'm seeing on social media and with Kenyans I'm talking on the streets, even as I was coming here, some border people stopped me and told me, they're asking, what is this? As Kenyans, we want to change. We want to remove Kenya Kwanza from power. We want to vote for our leaders that we believe in.
Now
so
it's
what they've
everyone
gotten,
in it.
Yes, what they've gotten is maybe they've got, if they're going to leave tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., now they leave tomorrow at 11 a.m. But leaving, they are leaving. Is just kicking the can down the road. Let me tell you why I say this. And it's very important that Kenyans understand. There's something that Mudavadi said yesterday. And he's the acting finance treasury CS.
He's acting everywhere.
He's acting everywhere. He's the minister for everything and nothing. So he said this, that we are going to look into the domestic market.
What do you mean minister for everything
did
and
he
nothing?
say nothing?
Yes. No, he's the minister for everything and nothing.
What do you mean?
Anything.
No.
Because he's the minister. When you say that, you're right. In our cabinet,
He's acting in all portfolios.
Understand, our constitution sets out the composition of a cabinet. A minimum of 14 and a maximum of 22. So when Mudavadi comes and says, I'm a minister for all portfolios, the constitution talks about individuals, not dockets. So an individual, you'll have your time.
But that would be an important question.
The point is this.
Yeah. Do you want to
you cannot have a cabinet.
He knows, he's a lawyer.
The point is, you cannot have a cabinet of 3 people. That's not the cabinet in the constitution. I mean, we cannot argue over this issue. The constitution strictly sets out what is the cabinet. The president,
let me ask you.
But let me go back to my point.
Let me ask you.
Yes.
You will not run away.
Yes.
After swearing in before President Ruto or any other president begins their term,
yes.
With a complete government,
Yes.
that period when there's no cabinet.
No, there's no. The cabinet continues. Remember, President Ruto used to chair the cabinet of Akina Matiang'i. That cabinet continues. He sat with
So
Akina
there
Matiang'i.
must be a cabinet until the next one.
He sat with Akina Matiang'i until he saw in his people. So cabinet continues. There's never
The
any gap.
Constitution, Article 152(5)(e), what is it?
Just read the composition of the cabinet. The cabinet shall consist of
So
A,
where
the
do you
president.
address that gray
I'm explaining
area?
to you.
Yes.
A, the president.
Yeah.
B, the deputy president. 3, not less than 14 members, and not more than 22. So right now, as we speak, before the ODMers and the new nominees are appointed, they are trying to purport to us that we have a cabinet of 3 members. That's an illegality right there. I mean, we can't argue over this. Okay. But let me finish my point. What I was going to say. Mudavadi said something, that we are going to come and reschedule. We'll have to relook at our domestic debts and reschedule it. You know, that was a very telling statement, and Kenyans are not understanding what that is. This man is telling you in advance, we are going to have a debt distress here, even a debt default. Now, that is the skunk that has been given to John Mbadi. I'm going to pray for that man, because a day is going to come when John Mbadi will be standing there to announce to the people of Kenya that we are now entering a debt distress exchange or a debt default. ODM, led by John Mbadi as the chairman, will carry that skunk to the people. This grenade that the pin has been pulled off is going to blow up in your hands. But their greed and lack of understanding of what the problem is what is leading them to what they're doing. And I say this with tremendous respect for them. And I say it is their right. When you see me saying this, it is just because I feel sorry for them. You may think you've been given a big cabinet slot as CS Treasury, but you've actually been put on the eye of the storm. You are now in the bullseye, and we are going to aim at you. When this treasury and this economy is going to collapse before you, you'll pay the price. People are on the streets not because of positions, What drove Kenyans to the street was the finance bill of 2024-2025 that had promised to increase taxes. That was the trigger. Now I'm waiting to see John Badi come up with a finance bill that reduces taxes. Because remember, Ruto had already promised us sometimes this year that you people are paying tax at the rate of 14% of your revenue to GDP to tax, 14%. I'll take it to 22, 23. That was a promise. So I wait for Badi to stand up and say, now this is my new finance bill. I'm increasing VAT on the following items. I'm increasing this and this and this. So he will carry that.
Okay.
So every decision you make has consequences. So I will not even analyze these people in terms of, oh, Ruto is smart, he has put a political smart move. This thing had nothing to do with the politics. This thing had everything to do with the Kenyans simply saying, we are fed up with the way in which we are being led.
Okay.
We are fed up with our governance, and we demand a government that is accountable and responsive to our needs and interests.
Gentlemen, we have less than 13 minutes of the clock, and I really want us to cover some ground. So short, precise comments on this. Maliba, I know you wanted to join in this conversation.
I just wanted to say,
or you still want to inform Willis? Then we can go to Maliba.
Then I have to talk. I have to respond. If he informs me, I have to respond.
You know, Willis is a consummate lawyer, and nobody can take that from him. But sometimes when he's on camera, he talks like a politician.
he is.
He is a politician.
He is a practicing one.
Yes.
Oh, he is a politician.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I only think he's a lawyer. Because when some of the terms he uses are unnecessary, to say that everything and nothing is not fair, because he knows very well that Article 152, I think, sub-Article 5, the president may reassign. Reassigning includes the reshuffles that he does. So if the president, in his own wisdom, decides to assign a prime cabinet secretary position, that doesn't call for pejorative remarks from Willis. What is factual is that indeed the cabinet is regarded as being minimum 14 and maximum 22.
Okay.
That is factual.
He's informed.
That is
Don't respond to this.
I'm not responding. I was just saying, just project Article 152. It says minimum 14, maximum 22.
But I've just said
and
that.
Tell me, if now the Deputy Rigathi Gachagua and President President Ruto are sitting, and Mudavadi walks in there, he's one other person. He's not 14. Is he 14 people?
Okay.
But why are you using Mudavadi as the criteria on the completeness of the cabinet or not?
He describes it as the persons, not the office.
Ken,
Yes.
I just wanted to remind Willis, just in case he forgot,
Yes.
and he's a very good student of history, is that President Uhuru Kenyatta ran this government for the last stretch for about 18 months without ever calling for a cabinet. And we still had that moving
cabinet
on.
meeting.
And Willis need to go to court.
Let me
Moving in quickly.
The problem, because he has mentioned me, let me respond to that. It's not like Uhuru was any better. In fact, the problems of Kenya are Jubilee. Jubilee was a coronavirus. Part of it became Delta. That is UDA Kenya Kwanza. Part of it went to Azimio as Omicron. But I'm not saying that Uhuru was any better.
Okay.
He's part of the problem, and I'm continuing with it.
Ken,
Yes.
you know, when you listen to Willis, you will actually think that sometimes he actually is serious with what he's saying. He's so good in poetry. Because you see, just because he was Raila's campaign manager, for example, we then don't call him being blood pressure, hepatitis B, and then ODM being A or whatever it is. We don't mischaracterize him that way. But let me say this. Willis said that we are going home. Probably we've added ourselves for 2 hours. Everybody will go home, Ken.
1 hour,
Even
5
ourselves from here, we will go home. If the president has got 2 terms, he will go home in 2032. Even Willis, at some point, he will go home. You know, the final. All of us will go home, so that's not a problem. But let me move quickly and say this. That we must realize that the third and final liberation is Article 43, socio-economic empowerment. We have got independence. Of course, we got from the British, of course, fought from the British. We have got a very robust Constitution 2010, which embodies the struggle for the for the second liberation. And this is it. You know, at this particular point, at a time when there is a shaking, we need leadership and direction. Willis comes up and tells us that we will be going home. And that therefore the solution for this country, I'm going to the debt issue. So he says that this is the skunk. It's going to, it's a grenade that is with unpinned, and therefore it's going to explode on their hands. But therefore, Willie somehow believes in his campaign of Ruto must go, that somehow if Ruto goes, then the debt situation will go away. That doesn't answer that.
Probably he means someone else will come and manage the debt.
So I'm saying, so at the same thing, that is why, that then takes me to my point. My point is this, that in moments like this, what are we looking at? We are looking at three things. We are looking for social order and stability. We are looking for agreement and moving forward. So you cannot be acting like the Wanga rat that I've been told about. I've never seen it, that it bites and then blows over it.
Okay.
So in one hand, Willis is giving, and the other hand, he's taking away. So this is the point, that we are at a point where leaders must demonstrate leadership.
Okay.
And the president has simply done that.
Okay.
The people in ODM Ken are very, very courageous. It's a very difficult time to cross over the floor and say the nation needs us.
All right, Maliba.
That courage must actually be lauded, and we must actually look at Mbadi in the eyes and say, he said whatever he said. You are allowing us to respond to the video. He said whatever he said, but Mbadi has looked at the nation and says, honestly, do we move away and say, let it collapse? We force a systemic decay, and then somehow we will come over and try to resurrect it?
I need to go to Theory. As I go to you, Wakili, I'd like to read a comment from Elvis254. He says, movie genre today, courtesy of KTN News, is drama, reality, and comedy. Second point is important. Attacks and the deflection of truths and lies on display. Philosophy, history, and the law offering clarity. Kenyans are yet to see accountability from this government. That is where this lands tonight. What he says. That is where, so as you make your point, have that in mind. That what Kenyans want, they haven't seen it, and Elvis254 captures it.
You know, there might be an element of that feeling, and that is a justified feeling. The reality of it is that the challenges that we face as a country, be they economic, be they political, be they social, because we face a myriad of challenges, cannot be fixed overnight. And somebody has to fix those challenges. And the person who we have all as Kenyans given that responsibility to fix those challenges for us is none other than the President of the Republic of Kenya, of course, with the team that he will pick to give us solutions to those challenges. And we've had a period of expression, we've had a period of agitation, and arising from that and listening to what people have said, the President has deemed it fit to act in the manner in which he has acted. I want to look at it and say that the steps after this are going to be extremely instrumental. The first thing that will give us an indication of where we are as a country will be the manner in which Parliament will conduct the vetting process.
Okay.
Because if it conducts the vetting process in a manner that is simply mechanical, that we now have the numbers, and so we will pass, irrespective of whether there might be questions as to your suitability or otherwise, then chances are that we are going to go back where we are trying to come from.
Okay. And of course, they've always had numbers theory. This is just now giving them super majority. We really need to wind up. I have about 2 minutes.
So that is what I'm saying, that we have a new way of doing things.
Yeah.
That there's been an agitation for a new way of doing things. And what would be the proof of the pudding would be whether we are reflecting that we are doing things in a new way or we are doing things in the old way, because that I think will be the crux of it.
Okay. As you comment, you have about a minute plus your closing remark.
Ken, the president said, and I agree with him, that although this is a crisis, there's a big opportunity. You asked me that question from the onset. And I want to say this, that in my view, our biggest problem, if it is addressed, is the issue of negative ethnicity. All these complaints about who has joined government and who has not joined government is premised on the fact that there is a feeling that certain ethnic comportments would benefit as against the other. If there is something drastic that the president ought to do, in my view, this time, using these unusual moments, is to hold a national dialogue conference. And this national dialogue conference should not be the ordinary one that we've heard, stakeholders. You bring religious groups, you bring Kenya Manufacturers Association. No, the true stakeholders in that conference must be the 44 ethnic groups in this country.
Okay.
Because when we talk about what tribe A has got, what tribe A hasn't got, then we are being genuine. The Reverend Canon Karanja once time said that the conversation we need to have on the table is about our tribal needs.
Okay.
Because Kenya is a lie. The tribe is the truth in this country. Let us talk about who has benefited more, who hasn't benefited more, how do we equalize, and let's be brutal about the truth of how national distribution of resources has been done in this country.
Thank you.
This is a unique moment which the president must use, and let's discuss openly. Okay. Because we know that the underlying problem among all these complaints is the unfair distribution of resources based on communities.
Thank you. Maliba, he's eaten all our time, but I can give you 30 seconds.
My closing remark will actually be away from the bickering and the pittering of politics that has been on the set tonight. And I would like to say 3 things. Number 1, Raila has been a gift to this nation by way of bringing in consensus when the nation really needed it. It might actually appear as weakness, it might actually appear as a strategy, it might actually appear as politics just for what it is. But there are times when this nation needed consensus and Raila was there to offer it. That is a gift that this nation will always have to thank him for. Secondly, Raila is actually offering the people of my generation, the millennials, a gift of a lifetime. And if they miss this bus, they might never actually board the bus to presidency, including Willis, my friend here. You know, there has been a little bit of a huge tree on the other side of oversight politics. I don't want to call it oppositionist politics. But let me just say, on that particular side, there has been a huge tree, and that tree has been Raila. Okay. Now that his team, because when I see 2 deputy party leaders in ODM, that is Joho and Oparanya, crossing over and joining us in UDA, it means that Baba is with us. As in, I don't have to go into the details and the details there, or rather other issues around it. It means he's on this other side. What has he done? There is a vacancy of the leader of official opposition. It doesn't exist in the constitution, but now
someone can take it up.
And that will be the nursery where now people can actually nurse leadership for the next 3 years, if you like, or even 7 if you think of it differently. But that is an opportunity to my generation, the millennials. Otherwise, if you look at how Generation Z are organizing themselves, myself and Willis will be here bickering. And then Kasmuel and the others will become the presidents of this particular republic.
Thank you.
Finally.
No. We're out of time, Maliba. We're out of time. We're out of time.
It was just for a second.
Yes, a second. You're done.
A second is this, that Ken, what is happening here, away from what we are calling, and the headline in the Standard talking about political survival and everything else, I think that is wrong. There is a generational handover that is happening under our watch, and we shouldn't miss that.
We shouldn't. I think you had said that. Don't worry, you have your 30 seconds before I give Willis.
No, I mean, we just have to wait and see.
Okay.
What this will translate into.
We put our eyes. Willis and I will say we put our eyes. Willis, you...
Very quickly.
Yes.
It seems the politicians are responding to the wrong problem. The leadership of the country is not responding to what led us to the crisis that we are in. If they thought the solution is to give seats to ODM and bring other people, they'll smell the coffee very soon. It's not over. Aluta continua.
It's not over until it's over. And tonight, before I conclude the show, I'd like to read a tweet from EJ Nyamogo. He calls himself #the Democrat. It's unfortunate that the official opposition has been officially silenced in Kenya through regional balancing, which ought to have been in place from day one of Kenya Kwanza government. This is what Maliba says, that there's a vacancy, there's a vacuum that anyone who wants to take it up can take it up, the opposition. The next coming weeks and days will be interesting in this country. And as always, we are Kenya and Kenya is our business. We played so many videos tonight, would not wish to play the video of the week unless Karen agrees that as we sign out, Damian Evans was on sign language. My name is Ken Mijungo on behalf of the whole